Bamidbar, in the wilderness, God's trumpet call presents. First reading from the book of Numbers, 34th reading from Torah. Outline of Torah portion. The command to take a census of Israel. Numbers chapter 1, verse 1 to verse 19. Adonai chose Moshe to speak to the children of Israel when they were still slaves in Egypt. He miraculously saved them from their slavery in Egypt. They came through the Red Sea and received miraculous provision in the wilderness. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites entered the wilderness of Sinai. God spoke to Moshe from the top of the mountain. 8 times Moshe ascended Mount Sinai. On the first ascent, first day of the 3rd month, Exodus chapter 19, verse 2 to 7, covenant was offered. Second ascent was to give people's response. Exodus chapter 19, 8. God said to Moshe that he will speak audibly to him, so that people will put their trust in the chosen leader. Moshe descends the mountain in verse 9 to give this information to the children of Israel. Third ascent, Exodus chapter 19, verse 10, God is speaking to Moshe, which implies that he has ascended Mount Sinai again. Moshe descended Mount Sinai again in verse 14. Moshe consecrates the people, prepared them for the Lord's appearance. Fourth ascent, Exodus chapter 19, verse 20 to 25, God summons Moshe to the top of the mountain to have him warn the people not to come closer to the mountain. Moshe descends the mountain in verse 25. Then God delivers 10 commandments audibly. Exodus chapter 21 to 17. People feared and requested Moshe to be their intercessor. Fifth ascent, Exodus chapter 20-21. Moshe approached God and he was given various laws as recorded in chapter 21 to 23. He also promised that the land of Canaan will be given to the children of Israel. The sixth ascent, Exodus chapter 24, verse 1, God summons Moshe to bring Aaron and his sons, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 elders. Moshe built an altar at the foot of the mountain and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. He offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings and read the book of the covenant to the children of Israel. They responded saying, "We will do everything the Lord has said. We will obey." Moshe sprinkled the people with blood of the sacrifice and ratified the covenant. Except for Moshe and Joshua, others descended the mountain. Moshe continues the ascent, and on the 7th day he approached the top of the mountain and entered the cloud. He remained there for 40 days and 40 nights. Moshe receives the 10 commandments written on tablets of stone by God himself, receives the instruction for the construction of the tabernacle and things related to the tabernacle and worship. Then Moshe and Joshua descended. They saw the idol worship with the golden calf, and Moshe destroyed the stone tablets in anger. Seventh ascent, Exodus chapter 32, verse 32, Moshe goes back to the Lord and intercedes on behalf of the children of Israel. In great love and mercy, like the love and mercy to be received through Yeshua HaMashiach, Moshe offered his own life in place for the love of Israel. The eighth ascent, Exodus chapter 34, verse 1 to 2. The Lord gives Moshe the second set of tablets, and God reveals himself as the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Moshe remains on the mountain for another 40 days and 40 nights. After the completion of the tabernacle, God spoke to Moshe from inside the tent of meeting. These are very important events in the history of the world. God was creating a nation who will know his ways and his laws. He spoke audibly and gave laws, defined what is sin, and revealed his holiness, made a way for Messiah to come to the world, who in Matthew chapter 5 verse 17 said that, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." Why did God give the Torah in the wilderness? The sages explained that just as wilderness areas are not owned by any particular people, but are free to mankind, so too the words of Torah are free and belong to everyone. The book of Numbers begins with the Israel preparing to leave Mount Sinai. God continues to speak to them from inside the tent of meeting as they travel through the wilderness to the promised land. The command to take a census of Israel. Numbers chapter 1 verse 1 to verse 19. The command was to take a census of all the congregation by their families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male individually from 20 years old and above, all who can go to war in Israel. Moshe and Aaron shall number them by their families. Jethro, Moshe's father-in-law, suggested that Israel be numbered in their thousands, by their hundreds and fifties, and in tens. This arrangement was already in place, and this arrangement would have made taking the census easy. Previously, in Exodus chapter 38, verse 26, Israel was numbered for the purpose of taxation. But this census was for the purpose of organizing an army capable of going to war. Only those over 20 years and above went to the army. Census was taken by the families following their fathers' houses. This was also to ascertain the number of people in each tribe. If one's father was from one tribe and a mother from another tribe, he is counted with his father's tribe. They were to take from each tribe someone who is head of a clan. They were assigned by name. The following tribal leaders were designated to assist Moshe and Aaron with the census. From Reuben, Elizur; for Simon, Shelumiel; for Judah, Nashon; for Issachar, Nathaniel; for Zebulun, Eliab; for Ephraim, Elishama; Manasseh, Gamaliel; for Benjamin, Abedan; for Dan, Ahiezer; for Asher, Pagiel; for Gad, Eliasaph and Nathaniel; and Naphtali, Ahira. Tribe of Levi is not mentioned, but the number of 12 is maintained because from Joseph 2 tribes were established, Ephraim and Manasseh. The count for each tribe numbers. Chapter 1 verse 20 to verse 54. Reuben 46,500, Shimon 59,300, Gad 45,650, Yehuda 74,600, Issachar 54,400, Zebulun 57,400, Ephraim 40,500, Manasseh 32,200, Benjamin 35,400, Dan 62,700, Asher 41,500, Naphtali 53,400, the total 603,550. All who were numbered were 603,550. This is only the number of available soldiers. According to some, total population of Israel at this time was 2 million or 2.5 million people, including women, children, and those unable to fight. According to Genesis chapter 46, verse 27, about 215 years before the first census of Israel, 2 sons were born to Joseph in Egypt, and all the persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70, total of 72 people. Even though they endured a lot of hardship, God kept his promise that he gave to Abraham, that his descendants will be like the stars in the sky. Genesis chapter 15 verse 5. According to God's commandment, Levites were not numbered among the children of Israel, for they did not go to war. Instead, they fulfilled their responsibility to God for the priestly duties of Israel. The Levites camped around the tabernacle. Order of encampment and marching. Numbers chapter 2 verse 1 to chapter 2 verse 34. Up until now, Israelites assembled in just about any way they pleased. But God is ordering them that they encamp by his own standard, beside the emblems of his father's house. All the tribes are to camp some distance from the tabernacle of meeting. In Numbers chapter 24, verse 5 and 6, Balaam described the beauty and order of the camp of Israel. These verses describe how the Israelites were to camp in the wilderness. The camps for the 12 tribes surrounded the tabernacle, Mishkan, on 4 sides. East of the tabernacle, Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, total of 86,400 men capable of fighting for Israel. South of the tabernacle, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, total of 108,100 men. West of the tabernacle, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, for a total of 108,100 men. North of the tabernacle, Dan, Asher, Naphtali, for a total of 157,600 men. This is the order they followed when the camp moved. The tabernacle and the tribe of Levi traveled after the camp of Reuben. The Levites and their duties. Numbers chapter 3 verse 1 to verse 13. Numbers chapter 3 begins with the records of Aaron and Moshe. Aaron's sons Nadab, the firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. They were anointed and consecrated to minister as priests. Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered profane fire before the Lord. They had no children. Eleazar and Ithamar ministered as priests in the presence of Aaron, their father. Moshe did not appoint his sons to leadership in Israel. They became incorporated with the Levites. Eleazar and Ithamar inherited the priesthood and passed it down to their sons after them. Only those who are descendants of Aaron could be priests. The entire tribe of Levi was given to serve the needs of Aaron and priests, the needs of the congregation at large, and needs of the tabernacle. In addition to these aspects of the Levites' service, they taught God's word to the people. Families of Gershon, Kohath, and Merari also served as musicians during the reign of King David. In Numbers chapter 3 verse 11 to 13, God declares that Levites are a special possession to God. Levi was not the firstborn among the brothers, yet God chose the Levites as his own. Levites replaced the firstborn of the nation. Census of the tribe of Levi, Numbers chapter 3 verses 14 to verse 39. The Lord spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai and said to number the children of Levi by their fathers' houses, by their families, every male from a month old and above. Children of Levi were not counted among the available soldiers of Israel for military service. Levites were counted from the age of 1 month old and above. Only males are counted, as they will be the ones who will serve in the tabernacle. Different from the census of other tribes, which was every male 20 years and above. Numbers chapter 1 verse 45. Descendants of Levi, firstborn son Gershon, 7,500 men. The families of the Gershonites were to camp behind the tabernacle westward. between the tribes of Ephraim and the tabernacle itself. Their duties were disassembly, transport, assembly, and upkeep of the tent with its covering, the screens and the hangings and their cords. Descendants of Levi's middle son, Kohath, 8,600 men, families of the Kohathites camped on the south side of the tabernacle. This was in between the tribe of Reuben and the tabernacle itself. Sometime later, under the leadership of Korah, some Kohathites rebelled against the authority of Moshe and Aaron. Numbers chapter 16, verse 1 to 50. Duties of the Kohathites included taking care of the furniture of the tabernacle and its utensils. They were responsible for covering, proper transport, placement, and maintenance of the holy items. Descendants of the Levi's youngest son Merari, 6,200. Families of Merari camped on the north side of the tabernacle between the tribe of Dan and the tabernacle itself. Their duties included the care of the structural aspects, the wooden parts of the tabernacle, its ropes, sockets used for the curtain of the courtyard of the tabernacle, including pillars, boards. Camp of the priests. The family of Aaron and Moshe were to camp on east side of the tabernacle, closest to the tabernacle. Counting of the firstborn Jewish males, Numbers chapter 3, verse 40 to 51. The Lord said to Moshe, number all the firstborn males of the people of Israel, a month old and over, and determine how many there are. The Lord commanded to take the Levim for him, in place of all the firstborn among the people of Israel, and the cattle of the Levim in place of the firstborn of the cattle belonged to the people of Israel. Before the sin of the golden calf, the firstborn son of each Israelite's family was consecrated to the Lord. Exodus chapter 13, verse 2. However, the firstborn sons of Israel later took part in the sin of idolatry, so they forfeited this right. Only the clans of the tribe of Levi did not take part in the sin of idolatry. They did not forsake the Lord when Moshe was up on the mountain Sinai. For this the Lord honored them with a special status in Israel. The Lord commanded Moshe to exchange the roles of the firstborn son to the Levites, who would then serve him in the Mishkan. The firstborn Jewish males from the age of 1 month were counted. Their total was found to be 22,273. 22,000 of these firstborn were redeemed by 22,000 Levites. 5 shekels each was paid by the remaining 273, and the amount was given to Aaron and his sons. Duties of the family of Kohathites, Numbers chapter 4, verse 1 to 20. The Lord spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, to take a census of the sons of Kohath from among the children of Levi, by their families, by their father's house, all those from 30 to 50 years old. They needed to be fit for the service of carrying the holy furnishings. Age between 30 and 50 considered to be the best years of a man's life, considering the physical strength as well as wisdom. The Ark of the Covenant was holy, so it could only be covered and prepared for transport by the priest. The priest first covered it with a veil that separated the holy place from the most holy place. Then the veil was covered with badger skins, and that was covered with a cloth entirely of blue. Ark of the Covenant was not supposed to be touched by human hands directly. Poles were inserted through the rings attached on the sides. Ark was carried by these poles. The table of showbread, the altar of burnt offerings, and the altar of incense were transported by the same method. The table of showbread and its utensils were covered with a scarlet cloth, then with a covering of badger skins. The lampstand of the light with its utensils was covered with blue cloth, then with a badger skin. The golden altar with its utensils was covered in a blue cloth, then with abaja skins. Ashes from the altar was collected on a purple cloth together with implements associated with the altar of incense and covered with badger skins. Only the priests could prepare the furnishings of the tabernacle and keep them ready for transport. The ark, the tabernacle, the menorah, the altar, and dividing curtain, and the service utensils. When Aaron and his sons have finished covering the holy furnishings and all the holy utensils, and the camp is about to move forward, then the descendants of Kohath are to come and carry them. But they were not to touch the holy things.